Welcome to the weekly chart reviews. Now, from kind of a popular request, I'm going to be splitting up the videos. I'm going to do Forex side and then the stock side. When I'm going to be discussing the indices, it will be on the stocks. So the only thing that I'm going to go through on the Forex side will be currency pairs and Bitcoin. All right? And oil, gold, and silver. Sure, we'll do those as well. All right, so let's dive in, shall we? Let's start off with Aud Cad. So I did the preliminary work right now of just marking up some potential zones already, just to kind of zoom through these ideas. So right now I see two potential entries. Right here, for example, is going to be the first one because we have a large imbalance, and the second one is an institutional play, right? So the first potential zone, as you can see, there's been a lot of play just above that line, like there's been a lot of support, and it does not want to go any lower than that, right? So what we're going to do is if it pops into here and then we see a reversal, when the EMAs reverse, I would say on the 1 hour, that would be a bit more reasonable, right? Because as you can see, this big imbalance, is on the 1 hour. So what we'll do is we'll wait for a bounce, and then when EMA switch, potential entry from that point onwards. That's why I haven't done a long position on this yet. However, if it completely breaks through it, this is going to be our target for getting in on a buy. Okay, so that is Aud Cad, and right now it's just a waiting game for that one. As you can see, I marked the ones of interest in green, but I'll just go over all the pairs anyway just to give you an idea. Aud Chf, besides a really heavy resistance zone up here, there's really nothing of note that I can see except for potentially this imbalance area, right? So it's good to know that it'll be coming back to that area, but from where it'll bounce off, potentially here, I mean, we had a little bit of volume that drove the price to that particular area now, right? As you can see, the majority of the volume is exactly where things have been kind of tipping off. And, you know, it could potentially bounce right up and come to this area here and then go further down. CHF is going to be quite strong, even though it's overall neutral. The currency itself is going to be strong by comparison to AUD only because inflation is much more stagnated in Switzerland than it is in Australia. CHF is much more stable. All right, so there's that. There's a potential draw-up zone here. As you can see, it's between 0.703 and 0.0705, right? Kind of 367, I guess, if you want to go into that particular zone. But that's quite chunky. You know, it's about 100 and not 116 pips, right? It's not so bad. So we'd be seeing kind of a pullback here before a drop. Aud Jpy I have a lot of interest in. At first I was a little hopeful that the pullback would be happening kind of down here. It seems that it went much higher, and I really wanted to find out what was in this wick because it seemed to be the thing that was in play. So brought it all the way down to a 3-minute candle, and like I'll throw it into the replays just so you can see what it looks like. But then we're going to switch over to the 3-minute. As you can see, there's a lot of movement within 6 minutes, right? That's where we saw a move up and down of approximately 46 pips. So that's a 90 pip move in the span of 6 minutes, right? Very significant. That is definitely considered an institutional play, okay? And yes, we want to exit the replay. And what that tells me is that from that area, this is where we would be bouncing off of. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch that. I mean, it did happen on March 28th, so it should have been something I noticed last week. But I didn't. It is what it is, right? So we had one rejection and second rejection. So that's what we call a double top. And then it started nicely dropping and then consolidating around this area. Late in the night, I'm going to be yawning. Pardon me. So now what we see is, why is it consolidating here of all places? Right? Well, very simply, I think because the majority of the volume is concentrated in that particular spot. So as you can see, we have our point of control drawn up here. If I draw that big red line, we're bouncing up and down in between that line right now. Okay. I have a feeling we will be consolidating slightly longer before dropping further down, but the consolidation actually gives us a good idea. We know that the trajectory is going to be on a sell, right? AUD is going to be very weak. JPY has a lot of ground to make up, especially when it formed resistance way up here. You know, that creates us two potential entries. Will it pull back here where we have that imbalance? Or, you know, where it, what I would do is take a sell from this area anyway, kind of with maybe 20 pips in mind, 25, something like that. Let's go 25. Right? The idea would be that it would be a sell stop rather than a sell limit. So once it crosses this point of control, we're going to take it going down. And as you can see, right, I don't really want to set my stop loss too high. It's just kind of at the tip of these wicks. It's not going much higher than this. So maybe even like 27, 28, something like that, right? Just to give it enough space before the drop. And I would say a potential gain of quite possibly, let's go right there where we have the majority of volume. So 150 pips from that zone is a pretty good start, right? I would say that this has the potential to go very, very long, as we've saw over the last month. The AUD Jpy got crushed. So for a short-term gain, I would say this is very reasonable. Long-term, we'd be seeing, man, something very deep. We didn't have any retracements yet. I would be looking for imbalances. So here we have one right there, small one right here. But as a potential target, let's just draw it in the middle here. Like, that would be pretty reasonable to try to snag as well. So we'd be looking at a potential 320 pips, you know, 11.83 to 1 ratio. Very nice. All right. If we do see the price pull up, we can even do something like that, right? And take it even deeper, right? 400, almost a 400 pip gain, if the price heads up to there. If not, I would say that if the price pops up a little bit higher, just the sell stop will do the trick, right? Just make sure that it has enough breathing room so it doesn't stop you out. Right, so even maybe 30 pips would be reasonable. And if you're really skittish, then 50 pips is definitely going to be enough. But yeah, you know, we want to snipe a little bit. So yeah, 28 pips is good. 14 to 1 is still all right. Moving on to AUD NZD. Now, this was very interesting. You know, the play between AUD and NZD was kind of in consolidation for a little bit, slightly going up. I really wanted to know what was in this wick, because AUD and NZD pairs have a tendency to do a lot of this. That's why I don't like to trade them that often. And that was within 1 minute that we saw this gigantic wick play out. That's 31 pips, right? So as you can imagine, if it's just a wick, that means it went down 31 and up 31. Right, within 1 minute. So that's 62 pips of movement in a minute or less. Okay, very significant. That means institutional play inside of here for sure. Right, so what does that tell me? With that institutional, I drew up this red line to signify the middle of them. Right, and sure enough, it played off very well through that. It kind of retested that area and back up it goes. Right, very likely we're going to hit the resistance up here again to be able to enter a sell. But again, I'm not comfortable with AUD NZD. I'm going to leave that alone. AUD USD. So before we jumped in the week, I believe I had a potential play kind of going from here to a sell, because this is where we had a previous resistance zone. Got crushed, right? It went all the way up here, forming a new high. Hasn't been this high, I think, for the last 5 years. And then we just had a big significant drop, right? And as you can see here, very strong institutional plays there. Even if we lower down the frames, we just get a fractal instead, right? So that's a good indication that this is going to be a play that we're interested in. As an example, it went up and down in 2 hours about 25 pips, so 50 pips total in about 2 hours, up and down. You know, not too shabby. What I believe will happen is we're going to get a pullback to about either this white line or this white line, like their previous volume zones and resistance zones. It's kind of hard to tell. You know, I don't really want to be taking any buys on AUD because USD should be stronger in the potential long term. So yeah, to take sells would be a little bit more comfortable for me to be able to grab. Yeah, as you can see, we formed a lot of volume here. I wouldn't even need to draw it up. You just kind of see how all the candles kind of went horizontally, right? So we have our point of control drawn up here. Whoops, let me click on that. Point of control drawn up here. So what those would kind of indicate is a potential rejection off this line for it to go further down. So what we could look for is a sell, you know, and look at the tips of the wicks, right? We just want to go slightly above them, right? So wick, 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 you know, potential run. What would we say? 50 pips, kind of the bare minimum. This is going to go much, much deeper. So, you know, I would say, where's a good imbalance to grab? See this gigantic wick right there? That would be a good trajectory for TP. You know, 229 pips to snag, and we're looking at a 12-to-1 risk to reward. Very good for only risking 18 pips. You know, again, just looking off a rejection off this point of control and then going down nice and deep. All right, so that is, yeah, I guess that's a potential that we could look for. You know, always going over the charts a second time lets you see new potential trades that you missed the first time. Bitcoin. All right, I'm going to switch this over to the 4-hour. There was one thing I noticed, and yeah, as you see, I have kind of diagonal Fibonacci lines drawn up. That's my fib channel. What I noticed is this red line here is a very large point of control that we had from beginning of January till end of February, right, when we finally broke out of that. What I was expecting is a bounce off of this in order to take it higher. Now, we missed that by $234 as far as the Bitcoin value is concerned. So not really a whole lot when we're talking thousands here. However, I still think we're going to be coming a little bit closer. There isn't any logical reason right now to take a buy. There's no EMA switch. Everything's still pointing down. You know, what we see here, excuse me, what we see here is very similar to what was going on in this locale, right, where we went horizontally and then dropped back down. But I believe if we do bounce below this area, this is going to be a fantastic buy stop to take. You know, the majority of the time, every time it crosses, it really does cross through and just kind of retest the entry. So this would be a very, very strong trade to take. As you can see, a 35.5-to-1 ratio. That's insane. This would definitely take a little bit of time to fill. But as you can see, I put 2 large imbalances need to be filled, right? So here's the highest peak of it. This is kind of the midway. I believe that once we fill this imbalance right here, we're going to be dropping pretty hard, maybe back to the, you know, high 30,000s. But for the time being, there still needs to be a lot of gaps that are filled in this area, right? As you can see, imbalance there, imbalance there. There's really nothing else to pull it upwards except for those two spaces, right? So once those get filled, I would be very hesitant to take this up any higher, right? That's where kind of greed kicks in, and people always assume that, you know, they're going to let it climb. I'd be more than happy pulling out even on the first one, because realistically, that's still going to be a tremendous gain. Like that's at 13.5, almost 14,000, as far as the value is concerned, right? You do a leveraged account, even, you know, one Bitcoin is 10 cents, right? So every time a dollar goes up in Bitcoin, you increase yours by 10 cents. I think that's probably the minimum, right? Bitcoin is a little bit scary to go on small accounts. So, I mean, this is something that it's only worth risking if your account is possibly 5,000 or higher. I wouldn't do it on a 1,000 or less. That's, you know, very risky, and your stop loss will basically trigger right away, even on the smallest amount. So, your call. Cad Chf. Oh, pardon me. This was a play that I already called last week. It's playing out. Like, it's just taking some time, right? It's going sideways, not a whole lot of excitement, but if you were able to snag it off the entry, this is not the time to bring it up to break even. Actually, it is now. Like once we kind of hit the break even area there and started going further down, right? I mean, it's only 39 pips in profit. It's not massive, right? But at this point in time, it is a risk-free trade. I would not. I wouldn't bother letting it go any higher and hope for a retest. At that point, it's just it needs to be reanalyzed, right? At this junction, if it doesn't move any further down, then I would invalidate the trade. There's no sense in jumping in there once again. As you can see, it's been going sideways for a long time before it pops up. All right, Cad Jpy, similar idea to Aud Jpy. We're kind of in retracement land. This is a beautiful thing too, as you can see on the 4-hour when we have this institutional play, how many wicks play off that 50%. Like, it's insane, right? So what I'm expecting is one more touch and then it to go down. And that'll kind of give it enough time for the pink and the white, the 55 EMA and 233 to catch up and have a nice switch on the sell for a very, very long time. Oh, damn. Okay. But yeah, nothing happening yet, so I didn't mark it up. Chf Jpy, very similar. The only difference is that there really isn't much to play off of as far as structure is concerned. Like, if we switch it even to a 5-minute, right, we have to take into account what was going on with this play here, because it just kind of peaked up and down it went, right? So an imbalance formed where it just got filled right there. And previously, let's just keep scrolling. Here we go. Look at this, right? We're on the 5-minute time frame. You can see these gigantic wicks. So let's do a replay here and figure out what. Oh, there you go. It's on the 3-minute, right? So what good example is it to grab that beautiful institutional play? Here we go. Draw the white line horizontal. Okay, and then we close that and we put it back to the 1-hour. Let's see what that looks like for us. Holy smokes, Batman. As you can see, that 3-minute candle, right, up and down, that is what's forming that new resistance line, right? It's not crossing its height. It's kind of bouncing around that 50% mark on the higher time frames. This is a very good indication that it's a solid rejection and we want it to go down. At what point it'll go down, hard to say. Like I said, CHF tends to consolidate a lot. So it's really personal preference. Euro AUD, this one is a stubborn bugger. I know it wants to reverse, it's just a matter of time, but it's really, really, really slow, right? We had a huge, like this drop was ridiculous. If you were able to catch that, that's amazing. But I kept thinking that it was going to pull up because AUD was weak as far as the news was around February. It just kept going. Like, it just made no sense, right? But then or what is it, late February, war broke out kind of in this area, so that's where euro lost a lot of its strength. You know, just like the countries themselves, their currency goes with them. Anyway, the only thing that I see right here is, you know, a bounce right off those retracement levels. Fib channels are fantastic. Like, it's just, you connected at the right places and you could easily see how things play out, right? Like where we have the resistance there, it kind of bounced the same line, but, you know, diagonally, of course. Still, I'm not taking any trades on this pair, leaving it alone. Euro Cad, I have a feeling this is going to go slightly lower. It's going to pull back to this area where we have an imbalance and drop lower. Short-term target, I don't know how deep this is going to go, but it's been very consistent as far as its pull-ups and downs, right? So even if we take, you know, draw a normal Fibonacci, you see that around between the 618 and the 786 is where we have a lot of play. And then same idea where we do a retracement down to here. You know, kind of makes sense between the 50% and the 618 because we have an imbalance there. There really is no reason to pull it up any higher, right? All the volume is concentrated around there. So that would be my short-term target for Euro Cad. Euro CHF, this is a play already in motion. Very nice play. If anybody was able to get in on this one, that is great. You know, 35 pip stop loss, it worked out beautifully. And now currently sitting at almost 200, little bit more in profit, 200 pips. Fantastic trade. So that's what we're looking at. 6.5 to 1 so far. Potential TP gain all the way down here. But as we see, you know, the institutional is down there. Maybe we can raise it up a little bit just to make sure we don't lose out. So a 10 to 1, 9.9 to 1 works out for me. But that's already going. I'm not going to enter halfway through. The play's already in motion. The best thing that you'd be able to grab is from the bottom here. But again, it's trending downwards. This isn't something you'd want to snag as it's moving already. Euro Gbp, not much excitement. The plays have kind of already played out. Sharp moves for Euro Gbp as well. Euro Jpy, yeah, I'm actually expecting this to go higher even. This area right here was an all-time high, I think, ever for Euro Jpy, and we seem to be heading in that direction. Everything's kind of pointing this way, right? The only difference, because as we see Euro Jpy, it kind of formed a flag pattern, whereas Aud Jpy, it's kind of done a double top, right? So that's why I'm expecting Aud Jpy to drop and Euro Jpy to keep climbing. Let's take a look at Cad Jpy and what that looked like. It was very similar, right? So the fact that Euro Jpy looks like this and it's been trickling down, it kind of tells me that it doesn't want to go any lower based on where we had resistance. So, or support, sorry. So, yeah, I'm not 100% on this one. This seems to be, you know, as far as a confidence level goes, I'd say maybe 60%, so it's a little better than half. Yeah, time will tell. We'll see if JPY kind of strengthens up or every currency kind of takes it for a ride. Euro NZD, it looks like the euro is kind of rallying near the end of the week, except for Cad. Cad is much stronger than it at right now. Euro USD, yeah, it was unfortunate. I thought that there was going to be a little bit of a pullback and a continuation, but it just kind of hammered right through. So I set up another potential trade. This is a very historic support zone. And yeah, I mean, best case scenario, like I said, if you jumped in on the trade there, that was 200 pips to snag. Once EMA switched to maybe about like 150, 140, that would have been still a good level to get out. You know, I what was I saying? I think last week that there's a potential for a re-entry, right? But like I said, wait for an EMA switch when the play's already happening, and the EMAs never switch; they're continuing to go down. Okay, so not something you should have jumped in on at all. If you were not in the original play, then tough titty. Time to move on and find another trade. GBP Aud. So potentially, originally I thought it was going to be around this area because you saw the imbalance. So when it was moving horizontally around that support line, I expected it to kind of pop up. That didn't happen. It still kind of trickled down, right? The EMAs never switched on the 4-hour and then just kept going. And now here's where we have a point of control with volume. All right. So based on that, this is kind of what I expect. If it pops up, typically what happens around the volume areas is a little bit of the zigzagging, right? Before it goes really deep. But since it went deep and now it's kind of zigzagging again, I'm expecting something like this to happen. Expecting a little bit of breakup and then back down and then finally a move to the upside, right? So if the entry is to be taken around here, I would say wait for the price to go below it and then set a buy stop. So that means you only enter the trade once the price crosses that area. Anytime before that might be too risky, right? There's no sense of setting a limit when the EMAs are still kind of in no man's land and they're starting to consolidate with all the larger ones, right? So give it some time. Be patient on this one. It doesn't look like a lot, but it's 443 pips to grab. And if we're talking about going from one point of control to the other, the potential of getting 1400 pips is, yeah, it's yeah, it definitely could happen, right? So that's when you would understand that partials is going to be your best friend. If you enter with a lot size of, let's say, 1, and it kind of breaks through that 493, maybe take out 0.3 of all that and keep the rest in and see what happens, right? But you want to be securing your profits. You don't just want to be waiting for it to break even, hoping that it's going to go higher. Like, that's just dumb, right? So don't be afraid to pull your profits. If you think you took it too early, you know what? Don't worry about that. The whole idea is that when you secure your profits, you always win. It doesn't matter if you win a lot or a little, you always win. Okay, GBP Cad. Again, I was expecting a little push up, and it was slight, just because it was in between these two zones. But yeah, it dropped hard afterwards. So I'm not interested in this pair right now. There's nothing really I can pick up as far as information on the technical side, so I'm going to leave it alone. GBP Chf, same thing. I mean, we bounced off that zone as we've seen in the past, right? That's why we drew it up. And very strong potential for it to hit this area once again. So if we really take a look at it, that's a potential of 493 pips, right? So yeah, I mean, if you want, I guess this would be a decent entry to try to take, right? But judging how this one bounced right off that and then these ones went through but closed above, tell me that I would want to stop loss somewhere around down here. So 30 pips is reasonable, right? Set your percentage that way, and the highest potential gain would be up to there, 494, I guess. All right, so I guess we can make that one green. But again, maybe 65% confidence on this one. The CHF pair is not my favorite, but sometimes it works out. Gbp Jpy. So we have a play coming in here on a smaller time frame. I'm assuming that what we'll do is we'll get up here to get a rejection on the downside. As we know, the yen is gonna be gaining a little bit of strength, but right now the British pound is also a little bit strong. So it's kind of a little bit of a battle, and that's why you could see it basically moving sideways for the last couple of days. Right? This will be a good rejection zone for it to go down, so this is a waiting game. GBP NZD, very similar to GBP AUD, right, as we saw right there. I'm just more comfortable with the AUD pair, that's all. GBP USD, really not much to pick out. There's a few imbalances, but structure tells me that as far as any trades to take, this is going to be choppy, right? Like right now, it could be a potential for a buy. Only reason being is because, you know, if we talk parallel lines here. Oh geez, let me actually click that. If we talk about being in that channel, right, and then what's the highest point in between them? This guy, all right, and I'll delete that. This is what it looks like, right? So once it gets to that aqua, it kind of hovers around it, breaks through it, comes back down, breaks through it, comes back down. So, you know, I mean, it is definitely a potential to be able to take a trade around this area. How high it will go, it's hard to say, right? But it's making new lows every time, so I would just expect a classic Fibonacci pullback. 40 pip stop loss would be reasonable. So let's see, the most recent high would be around that area to the most recent low, which is here. Expect to the 618, kind of typical, right? So maybe that aqua line before it drops harder. The only reason I say that is because when we had these moves, you know, they went maybe to 786, 886, a little bit deeper. And then once it went up here, it pulled back to 618, as you can see, between 618 and 786, that zone. So, and then finally, I believe this is going to be like a 40%er, right? It's not even going to make it to the 50%. Yeah, just barely. So what this is telling me is that from here to here, you know, if we're going from most recent peak to that one, even a pullback somewhere around this zone will be realistic. So maybe TP1 would be like 195 pips, TP2 around 400, and the final TP would be maybe, you know, 570, let's say. Not bad. Good potential for a run that way, but overall this is still bearish. As you can see, it's all been trickling down, right? So this trade would be counter trend. If you're not comfortable with doing counter trend trades, wait for it to kind of get into this blue line as you've seen in the past, and then flip it, right? Take a sell instead rather than a buy, and that would be kind of a safer bet, right? So something like that. 60 pips, maybe a little too large, but whatever the case is, it's a trade I'm not going to jump in on right now. Buy may not be such a bad idea, but doesn't really tell me how high this is going to. You know what? I will probably just bring it down there. I'll be conservative about it, maybe 300 pips, 350. NZD Cad. Yeah, I'm trying to find something here. I really don't see it. As you can see, this is a little skewed. This is just going sideways, but it's going slightly lower each time, so I'm not really that interested. I'm going to take the flag off. NZD CHF. Nope. NZD Jpy. May not be so bad. We got the same sort of play in this candle right there, right? So if we draw that up from wick to wick, you know, we see that the majority of that on a couple of days, well, one full day actually, was playing around that 50% line, right? And we've had an EMA switch on the 4 hours, so this is a good sign that it wants to go down. What's the 1 hour look like? You know, it has switched, like even the pink is now above, which is a very good sign. We had some rejection off it, and it's moving very slowly, so jumping in on this one may not be the worst idea. You know, with a stop loss, I would be comfortable maybe around the 55 pip mark, something like that, just so it's above all these wicks where volume was going sideways, and be good potential for it to go lower. But just be careful. NZD Jpy pairs, NZD has a tendency to spike a couple dozen pips in every direction, right? So if you decide to move your stop loss to break even, it could spike 50 pips in 1 minute and break you out. That's why I'm not a huge fan of NZDs. NZD USD, you know, USD is a little bit more stable. This would be a fantastic play only because now we're coming in to go with the trend, right? So good trade idea to play with fib channel between first aqua and purple. So similar to how we seen this one go, we just had an institutional rejection off that line beautifully, right? And to give you an example, I drew that line right here. This is where it's based off. You can see the dots, right? Here's the first, here's the second, here's the third. Now, as you see it play out, what is it, a month and a bit later, beautiful, right? Like, couldn't ask for a better play than that. So I will be taking an entry off this white here when EMA switch on the 1 hour. That's going to be really nice. USD Cad, you know, wanted to see if there's anything we could play out of this one, but right now it's kind of forming a teacup. I don't like that pattern personally, although we did switch to go upwards. I think that this is going to be a very good zone to keep an eye on. Lots of times that the support zones become resistance zones, right? So right now we're bouncing in between it. I would say a buy stop may not be a bad idea to look for a play that does something like this and enter you into the trade, right? USD Chf, this is trending upwards, and you know, a few other educators wanted to jump in on a sell somewhere around this area. Yeah, no, that's I already, when I saw that happening, I'm like, no, this isn't a buy. I don't think that taking a sell on this is such a great idea right now. I mean, you saw the rejection, right? This was fantastic. Because look, wick, 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 wick. So yeah, I mean, the potential for this to move is great. But as you see, you know, it's not like this is going to be a move to end all moves. It's maybe 100 pips max to go back in a sell before reversing. So, you know, as what this looks like right now, you know, not super confident on it. I'm going to erase that green dot and move on. USD Jpy, we're looking very similarly like we did the other Jpy pairs. You know, you see very similar structure. The only difference is USD is a little bit stronger. So I have a feeling that if we see in the next few days, if we break through this peak, we're going higher. If we kind of reject and we have an EMA switch even on the 4 hour, but yeah, you can see that that might take a little bit. But if we have the EMA switch on the 4 hour, we will likely be going to a deep sell. Silver, I think I did a play something off this area where was the 50%, yeah. So, you know, not too exciting right now. It's still going a little sideways. Gold is kind of following suit. You know, I had this institutional play off that area here, and now it's just been going sideways for days. For weeks, actually. Like, it's 2 weeks of nothing. XTI USD oil. Oh, I know that this gap is so small to fill right now. Like, the majority of it has been grabbed. But here, let's draw it out there. Whoops. Something like that. You know, I grabbed a call here. What was it? Right at the bottom of this one, but you know, as you can see on the 4 hour, it went up and then it broke me even on this wick and then up it went. So whatever. I mean, it is what it is. Oil moves very quickly these days, so it's not something you should be playing around with if you're uncomfortable. You know, you can jump in and sometimes it'll spike up like an extra $2, which is 2,000 pips in any direction, and it could take 5 minutes for that move to happen. Like this guy right here on a 4 hour candle, if you want to look at it on the 1 even, right? You had, from wick to wick, you had a $13 move within 1 hour, right? And not only $13, but $13 one way, and then back up another 7. So that's over 20, 13, 7, that's $20 of movement within the 1 hour, right? And that's insane. Like that's very heavy. So be very cautious when it comes to these particular pairs, right? So oil. But yeah, lately it's been pretty steady, right? There's no surprises to be had, and I'll show you how consistent it is, right? So we take the fib to the low point. Oh look, 618 retracement. You know, wonderful. Okay, so 618. Let's see this one to the low point. Great. Oh my gosh, look, 618 retracement. Cool. So from here to the low point. Oh my gosh, look, 618 retracement. It's crazy. Go right here, bang, to the low point. What's the chance it's going to hit here and reject? Who wants to throw bets down? I'm just saying, right? Like it's once you learn Fibonacci, it becomes incredibly straightforward. Like even trend lines that form similar ideas, right? You can have, bam, right? Similar story. Like this is kind of what explains where moves are going to be heading off of. Like you could see that this yellow line rejected once, went up, kind of blew through it one time, went back up, but now look, reject, 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 kinda reject, reject, up it goes, and now another yellow line, reject, reject, right? So if you once you learn how to use fibs, you apply it with everything, and it's if you've been struggling at trying to figure out structure and how things move, this will help it click. It'll help you click, right? Once you get accustomed to it, it's a fantastic tool. So I hope that's been helpful with all the currency pairs and Forex. Please, everybody, like and subscribe the videos. That would help me tremendously, and I'll continue making these for the future for those that need a little bit of guidance when it comes to making some trades. If you want to learn how to use specific tools or indicators that I have set up on my screens, watch the how-to videos. There's a lot of information in those. And in due time, I'm going to be setting up kind of like private tutorials, you know, Zoom calls and lessons. I want to get that up and running for those that want a little bit more hands-on coaching. All right, so if you could do me that favor and like and subscribe, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more updates and what's coming out from me, that would be fantastic. Until next time, guys, keep it clean and enjoy the Forex trading atmosphere. Take care.